Spectra, first chapter, Sources for the History of Modern India. An abundance of historical material is available for studying India from the mid 18th century to the mid 20th century. In constructing the history of modern India, priority needs to be given to archives. Archive refer to a collection of historical records and documents, usually primary source documents. That is, those documents that have been created as a necessary part of some activity, administrative, legal, social, or commercial. They are unique, original documents not concisely written or created to convey information to a future generation. An important part of archives related to modern India are the official records, that is, the papers of government agencies at various levels. The records of the East India Company provide a detailed account of trading conditions during the period 1600 to 1857. When the British Crown took over the administration, it also kept a large variety and volume of official records. These records help historians to trace every important detail, development stage by stage, and follow the process of decision making and the psychology of the policymakers. The records of the other European East India companies are also useful for constructing the history of 17th and 18th centuries. They are primarily important from the point of view of economic history, but much can be gathered from them about the political setup as well. There are also many contemporary and semi contemporary works such as memoirs, biographies, and travel accounts, which give us interesting as well as useful glimpse into the history of the 18th and early 19th centuries. Newspapers and journals made their appearance in the later part of 18th century, and they provide very valuable information on almost all aspects of the Indian society, especially in the 19th and 20th centuries. Other sources of modern Indian history include oral evidence, creative literature, and painting. So, archival materials, basically four categories of official records. First, central government archives. Second, state government archives. Third, record of intermediate and subordinate authorities. And fourth is judicial record. Apart from these, there are private archives and archival source available abroad. So first of all, Central Government Archives. The National Archives of India, located in New Delhi, contain most of the archives of the Government of India. These provide authentic and reliable source materials on varied aspects of modern Indian history. The records with the National Archives come under various groups representing different branches of the Secretariat at different stages of its development. This happened as the work of the East India Company was distributed among various branches, public or general, revenue, political, military, secret, commercial, judicial, education, etc. And a separate set of records was kept for each of these branches or departments. With the appointment of James Raynal as the first Surveyor General of Bengal in 1767, the Survey of India began to scientifically map the unknown regions of the country and its bordering lands. The record of the Survey of India, as well as journals and memoirs of the surveyors, provide valuable information not only on geographical matters but also on contemporary socio-economic conditions and other important historical aspects. The proceedings of the public, judicial, and legislative department provide ample data for studying the social and religious policies of the colonial government. The government's policies on education and the growth of the education system during the colonial rule are mentioned in the education records of the Central Archives. The papers bearing on the emergence of the nationalist movement were part of the public series of the Home Department records. But in 1907, a new series of records, Home Political, was started to deal exclusively with political and communal issues. The records of the Reform Office are very useful for an analytical study of the constitutional developments from 1920 to 1937. Now, archives of the state government. The source material in the state archives comprise the records of the former British Indian provinces, second, the erstwhile princely states which were incorporated in the Indian Union after 1947, and the third is the foreign administrations, other than those of the British. Apart from these, the records of those Indian powers which were taken over by the British, for instance, the archives of the Kingdom of Lahore, popularly known as Khalsa Darbar records from 1800 to 1849, are important source material. Another important collection of the pre-British public archives in India is the Peshwa Daftar, housed in the Alienation Office, Pune. It forms the most valuable single source for the study of Maratha history for a period of almost a century before the fall of Peshwa. For studying the history of the princely states of Rajasthan throughout Jaipur, Bikaner, Jodhpur, Udaipur, etc., the archives of these states now housed in the Rajasthan State Archives at Bikaner are valuable. Similarly, the history of Dogra rule from 1846 in Jammu Kashmir can be studied in the valuable collection of a state paper housed at Jammu. The other significant archives of the princely state are those of Gwalior, Indore, Bhopal, Rewa, all in MP, Travancore and Cochin in Kerala, Mysore in Karnataka, and Kolhapur in Maharashtra. Now, the archives of three presidencies. The early record of Fort William's Bengal presidency were lost during the sack of Calcutta in 1756. But the archives of the Bengal presidency after the British victory at Plassey have survived more or less in a complete series, which are partially available in the National Archives of India and partially in the State Archives of West Bengal. The records of the Madras presidency begin from AD 1670 and include records of the governor and council of Fort St. George. In these records, there is a plenty of information bearing on the rise of the English East India Company as a political power in the south and in the Deccan, including the Anglo-French struggle and the English conflicts with other Indian powers. The archives of Bombay Presidency, housed in the Maharashtra Secretariat Record Office, Mumbai, are extremely useful studying the history of Western India, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Sindh, and the Kannada speaking districts of the erstwhile Bombay Presidency, which were incorporated in Mysore in 1956. Now, the archives of the other European powers. The archives related to the Portuguese preserved in Goa, mainly belonging to the period from 1700 to 1900, are valuable for the history of Portuguese possessions in India. The orders and dispatches from Lisbon received in Goa and the responses and reports dispatched from India to Portugal constitute the most significant historical material among the Portuguese archive. The Dutch record of Cochin and Malabar are in the Madras Record Office and those of Chinsura in the State Archives of West Bengal. The French archives of Chandernagore and Pondicherry were taken to Paris by the French authorities before they relinquished these settlements. The archives of Danish possessions were also transferred to Copenhagen when the Danes sold Trankebar and Serampore to the English East India Company in 1845. The remaining Danish records, mainly relating to Trankebar, are now housed in the Madras Record Office. Judicial records. Housed in the Madras Record Office, the archives of Mayor's Court at Fort St. George, beginning from AD 1689, are the earliest available judicial archives. The pre-Plassey records of the Mayor's Court at Fort Williams have been lost, but those for the years 1757 to 73 are kept in the record room of the Calcutta High Court, along with the archives of the Supreme Court of Bengal. Similarly, the records of the mayor codes at Bombay, established in 1728, are available in the Maharashtra's Secretariat Record Office, which also had the study of the archives of Bombay Recorder Code and the Supreme Court. Apart from containing the proceedings and minutes, this category of record contained copies of will, probates, and letter of administration, which are useful for genealogical studies and for investigation pertaining to the state of society and economic condition in the respective region. Published archives. The most significant archival publications are the parliamentary papers, which include many excerpts from the records of the East India Company and the Government of India under the Crown. The reports of the parliamentary select committees, various royal commissions constituent on specific subjects like education, civil reform, famines, parliamentary debates on the Indian Empire are indispensable. The proceedings of the Indian and provincial legislature, the weekly gazettes published by the central and the provincial governments, and collection of laws and regulations issued from time to time also serve as a useful source material for historical research. Now come to private archives. Private archives comprise paper documents of individuals and families of note who played a significant role in the development of modern India. The papers of eminent leaders of the nationalist movement and the records of organizations like the Indian National Congress are housed in the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library in New Delhi. The archives of bank, business houses, and chamber of commerce are extremely helpful in the study of economic changes. Now come to the foreign repositories. A vast body of historical material related to the history of modern India is available in the repositories of erstwhile imperialist powers who ruled in different parts of the Indian subcontinent as well as in some other countries. In England, the India Office Record, London, and the records kept in the British Museum are very valuable. The India Office Record possesses various important documents, the minutes of the Court of Directors and the General Court of the East India Company, and various committees constituted from time to time, the minutes and correspondence of the Board of Control or the Board of Commissioners for the Affairs of India, and the record of the Secretary of State and the Indian Council. The British Museum possesses collection of papers of British Viceroy, Secretaries of State and other high-ranked civil and military officials who were posted in India. The archives of the missionary societies, for instance, of the Church Missionary Society of London, provide insight into the educational and social development in pre-independent India. The Archives National, Paris, and the archives of the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Colonies and War have record that throw light on the history of French possessions as well as the socio-political conditions. The records of the Dutch East India Company is available in Rijkershoef, The Hague, and that of the Danish and Portuguese are kept in Copenhagen and Lisbon respectively. Apart from the archives of the European nation, the archives preserved in Pakistan are of utmost importance. The West Pakistan Record Office, Lahore Record Office, Peshawar, records available in Sindh, etc., give information about the regional history of the Indian subcontinent, besides shedding light on the India's relation with Afghanistan, Iran, and other neighboring countries in the colonial era. Now, biographies, memoirs, and travel accounts. Many travelers, traders, missionaries, and civil servants who came to India have left account of their experiences and their impression of various parts of India. An important group among these writers was that of the missionaries who wrote to encourage their respective societies to send more missionaries to India for the purpose of evangelizing and inhabitant. In this journal, Bishop Heber's Journal and Abbe Dubois' Hindu Manners and Customs provide useful information on the socio-economic of life of India during the period of decline of the Indian powers and the rise of British. Some of the famous British travelers who wrote travel accounts were George Foster, Benjamin Hearne, James Burns, C.J.C. Davidson, Alexander Burns, and John Butler. Famous non-British travelers who wrote India about include Victor Jacquemont, who wrote letters from India describing a journey in the British dominions of India, Tibet, Lahore, and Kashmir during the years 1828, 29, 31. Behram Charles, who written Travels in Kashmir and the Punjab, and William Moorcroft. These travel accounts are indispensable and generally reliable source for constructing the history of modern India, especially as they supplement the official paper. Newspaper and journal. Newspaper and journal of the 19th and 20th century published in India as well as in the different vernacular language form an important and authentic source of information for the construction of the history of modern India. The first attempt to publish newspapers in India were made by the disgruntled employees of the English East India Company who sought to expose the malpractices of private trade. For instance, in 1776, William Balls, being censured by the Court of Director for Private Trading, resigned from the company and announced his intention to publish a newspaper. The official response to Bolt's scheme was strong, and his plan ended before materializing. In 1780, James Augustus Hickey published the first newspaper in India, entitled the Bengal Gazette or Calcutta General Advertiser. Hickey's press was seized within 2 years owing to his outspoken criticism of government officials. Afterwards, many publications appeared, such as the Calcutta Gazette 1784, the Madras Courier 1788, and the Bombay Herald 1789. The newspaper and journals of the early period primarily aimed at catering to the intellectual entertainment of the Europeans and Anglo-Indians. From the second half of the 19th century, many powerful newspapers appeared, edited, and published by distinguished and fearless journalists. Interestingly, nearly one-third of the founding fathers of Indian National Congress in 1885 were journalists. Some of their publications were The Hindu and Swadesh Mitram under the editorship of G. Subramanya Iyer, Kesari and Maharat under Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bengali under Surendranath Banerjee, Amrita Bazar Patrika under Shishir Kumar Ghosh and Motilal Ghosh, Sudharak under Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Indian Mirror under N.N. Sen, Voice of India under Danabhai Naroji, Hindustan and Advocate under G.P. Verma, the Tribune and Akhbar in Punjab, Indu Prakash, Dhyan Prakash and Kal and Gujarati in Bombay, Som Prakash, Bangan Sivasi and Sadharani in Bengal were other noted newspapers of the time. Indian nationalists and revolutionaries living abroad published newspapers and journals. Indian sociologist, London Shyamji Krishna Verma, Bande Mataram, Paris Madame Kama, Talwar, Berlin Virendranath Chattopadhyay, and Gadar, San Francisco Lala Hardi, to infuse a feeling of nationalism among Indian living abroad. Newspapers depict almost all aspects of life in colonial India from around the 1870 onwards. From the 1920s onwards, newspapers tracked the major events during the freedom struggle. However, newspaper accounts cannot be seen as unprejudiced or completely objective. The accounts that were published in a newspaper in London by the pro-British Raj people were bound to be different from the report in an Indian nationalist paper. Oral evidence. Oral history refers to the construction of history with the help of non written sources, for instance, personal reminiscence. Oral sources allow historians to broaden the boundaries of their discipline and corroborate their findings from other sources of history. However, many historians remain skeptical of the veracity of oral history. Now, the creative literature. The most significant outcome of the Indo European contact was the literary genre of the novel, which emerged in the later half of the 19th century. The first important writer of the period that was Bengali novelist Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. His novels are mostly historical, best known Anand Bhatt, 1882, noted for his powerful lyric Vande Mataram and depiction of the Sannyasi revolt, 1760s. His last novel Rajsimha, can be called the grand finale to his remarkable career. Icharam Suryaram Desai is a Gujarati literacy scholar of medieval Gujarati literacy history, and his first novel was Hindane Britannia, one of the earliest Indian novels with political overtones. Tamil writers like Girija Devi and Ramathirathamal, who wrote Mohana Rajni 1931 and Dasikaleen Moshavali 1936 respectively. So Girija Devi wrote Mohana Rajni, Ramathirathamal wrote Dasikaleen Moshavali. G.V. Krishna Rao's Kilu Bomalu, The Puppets 1956 in Telugu was concerned with the moral aspects and behavior of the rural people. Vaikom Muhammad Bashir, one of the eminent writers in Malayalam, and his famous novel was Balya Kala Sakhi in 1944. Takajai Shiva Sankara Pillai became prominent for his two extremely well written works in Malayalam, that is Toti Yure Makan and Chimeen. Toti Yure Makan was in 1948 and Chimeen in 1956. Now let's come to the painting. Some information on the socio-economic, political and cultural life during the colonial period can be obtained from the paintings of that period. Company painting, also referred as the Patna Kala, emerged under the patronage of the East India Company. They picturized the public, people and scenes as they existed at the times. Trade, festival, dances and the attire of people are visible in these. Company paintings continued to be popular in 19th century under the introduction of photography in India in 1840s. The pictorial images produced by the British and the Indians painting, pencil drawings, etching, posters, cartooning, bazaar prints, especially important record of the Great Revolt of 1857. The British pictures offer images that were meant to provoke a range of different emotions and reactions. Some of them commemorate the British heroes who saved the English and repressed the rebels. Relief of Lucknow, painted by Thomas Jones Barker in 1859, is one of such examples. Another painting of this period, In Memoriam by Joseph Noel Patton, recorded and painting 2 years of the revolt of 1857. One can see English women and children huddled in a circle, looking helpless, innocent, seemingly waiting for the inevitable. This sort of violence and death. These paintings of the Mitanni period are important for the historian to interpret and understand the worldviews of the British and the Indians regarding the major Kalikat paintings that came to the fore in Calcutta in the 19th century depicted not only mythological figures but also ordinary people engaged in their everyday life. The later picture captured the social changes taking place in Calcutta at the time. These paintings made a comment on social evils of the time. Some of these paintings satirized certain modes adopted by the people of that time. In the last decades of the 19th century, a new art movement was emerged, which received its primary stimulus from the growing nationalism in India. Artists like Nandalal Bose and Raja Ravi Verma were representative of this new trend. In the rise of the Bengal school led by Abhindranath Tagore, nephew of Rabindranath Tagore, E.B. Havel, who joined the art school in Calcutta as a principal, and Anand Kentish Kuraswamy played a vital role. Though many of the paintings of this new trend primarily focused on the themes of Indian mythology and cultural heritage, they are important source for studying the modern art movement in India and for the art historians. Thank you. Next, we can complete the second chapter reading. Um, so, bye.